Hi, I'm Rad, creator of SoapJS. In this video I want to show you the application layer in SoapJS. This is the place where we put the actual use cases of our system. Not HTTP, not database, not framework details, but the actions that our application can perform. For example, create a comic, list comics, update or delete one. Each of these actions is represented as a use case. In our demo project, we already have a comics feature, and inside we have applications use cases. Here we can see the files like create comic, list comics use case, and so on. A use case has one main job. It receives input, coordinates the domain and repositories, and return a result. So let's open the create comics use case. Here we inject the repository, create a domain entity, call repository add, and then return a result. And this is the important part of SoapJS. Result. This is a pattern which is known from the languages and ecosystems like Rust, or from the functional programming with types like either, from Scala, Kotlin. The idea is simple. Not every failure has to be an exception. Sometimes failure is just a normal business outcome. Validation failed, entity was not found, repository returned an expected error. The operation did not succeed, but the application is still working correctly. So instead of throwing errors everywhere and wrapping every layer with try-catch, the use case can return result with success or result with failure. And this makes the flow explicit. Of course, as a developer, you can still use try-catch. SoapJS does not block you from using exceptions. If something truly unexpected happens, or if you integrate with the libraries that rose, try-catch is still valid. But for the application level outcomes, result helps you to keep the code cleaner. The caller does not have to guess if a method throws. It can check if result is a failure, or use the successful content. So instead of spreading errors handling randomly across controllers, services, and repositories, we can manage the result of an operation in a predictable way. Okay, so maybe now let's create a use case in another feature. Here we also have publishers, which is not fully featured, but we created an entity in the last video. So let's put the use case here. For that, I'm going to use the command soap add use case. For example, create publisher. We need to define the feature, and we hit enter. That use case create publisher. Let's go inside. As you can see, we have application folder and inside use cases, and the very use case we created. Right, so this is the very basic structure of the use case, where you can find here our interfaces for the input and output, and also the sample code. Now the use case should stay focused on an application logic, right? So it should not know if the requests come from Express, gRPC, queue, event. It should also not know the details of any database like Mongo or Postgres. And that brings us to another important part of the application layer, repository ports. In the comics feature, let's open one. Here we have a comics repository. This is not the Mongo implementation. This is the contract that application layer depends on. The use case says, I need something that can store comics, find comics, maybe find it by ID. But it does not say, I need MongoDB. So that details lives in the data layer, for example, in the comics repository Mongo. For the dependency points inward, the use case depends on a port, and the infrastructure implements that port. This gives us a clean boundary. The controllers can call use cases. The use case coordinate domain logic, use case depend on the repository port, and data adapters implement those ports. And every operation return a result. So success and the failure are part of the method contract. The important part in the repository port is that the comic repository extends the repository from the SoapJS. Here you can see only find by ID, which is the custom method, which we also implemented in the data layer. But the repository from SoapJS contains already a lot of default methods available for use right away. Each of these methods has its own implementation in the database source for Mongo and also the SQL. That is the application layer in SoapJS. Explicit use case, predictable results, and the clean ports between business logic and infrastructure. In the next videos, we're gonna go deeper into contracts, controllers, repositories, also how the CLI connects all of these pieces together. If you like that video, please hit a like, subscribe, and yeah, see you next video. Thanks.